Gambling. It's everywhere in America. Be it playing slots in dazzling casinos or betting on horses with silly names, gambling is a common fixture in American society. Recently, however, one of the biggest forms of gambling to hit the mainstream has been sports betting. Sports betting as an industry has exploded in popularity over the past few years, going from the halls of Vegas casinos to a majority of states. Everybody is checking the odds for their favorite team or putting up parlays, and they're having tons of fun doing it. While gambling at its best can be a fun pastime, and the popularity around sports betting is not without merit, it is ultimately a vice that can have negative effects for many. The rise in sports betting is no different, and while it presents the same pros and cons of other forms of gambling, I think its recent boom has been unique both in its context and its consequences. Like and subscribe. To talk about why sports betting has become so popular, we need to look at its history. Gambling is often a highly regulated activity in the United States, and sports betting is no exception. For much of the 20th century, sports betting was either unpopular or outlawed on a state level, with the only place you could bet on games being, unsurprisingly, Vegas. While sports betting was generally illegal or non-existent in other states, federal legislation targeting the practice was enacted in 1992. The Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act effectively outlawed sports betting throughout the US, though states with betting laws already on the books were grandfathered in. While most states and individuals were fine with PASPA, it began to receive criticism and challenge in the years to come. New Jersey in particular led the charge against this bill, issuing lawsuits against the government for PASPA, and even passing a state referendum which legalized sports betting. These challenges and legal workings ultimately culminated in a case before the Supreme Court in 2018. Said case challenged PASPA under the pretense it violated the 10th Amendment, saying it compelled and commandeered the states to enact policies the federal government couldn't regulate. The Supreme Court was convinced by this constitutional reasoning and ultimately repealed PASPA in a 6-3 judgment. This decision allowed for any state to regulate sports betting as they see fit, and in turn led to the modern craze around the practice. The massive popularity around sports betting is, in some ways, unsurprising. For what virtues Americans possess, they are just as inclined towards vice, be it booze, drugs, or gambling. Sports betting would have become popular no matter what, but there are two things that set its meteoric rise apart, with the first being the insane amount of marketing surrounding it. Large sportsbooks such as FanDuel, Caesars, and DraftKings have all been dumping millions, if not billions of dollars into advertising. Posters, billboards, and obnoxious commercials are now everywhere, all to paint a positive picture of sports betting. There have even been integrations between major sports leagues and sportsbooks themselves, meaning they're almost impossible to avoid if you just want to watch a game. Outside of their aggressive marketing campaigns, sportsbooks have exploded in popularity thanks in part to the lockdown. If you're trapped in your house, unable to go out, and bored out of your mind, you turn towards whatever entertainment or pastime you can find. In accordance with this, deleterious or addictive activities saw a rise during this period, with gambling being no exception. The legalization of sports betting coincided well with the lockdown, as sportsbooks could capitalize on a captive audience. These two factors of non-stop marketing and the lockdown let sports betting become a billion-dollar industry, all in 4 short years no less. While this development has been great for sportsbooks, the house always wins after all, the results have been mixed for bettors. Gambling likes to paint a pretty picture of itself. In ads and promotions, you see gamblers winning big and having the time of their lives. This facade is shattered quickly, however, when you realize gambling is a vice, and an addictive one at that. Gambling addictions are one of the most common forms of addiction in the United States, affecting millions, if not tens of millions of Americans. The rise of sports betting has, unsurprisingly, exacerbated these issues. Perhaps the biggest indicator of this growth in addiction has been gambling help hotlines. Ever since sports betting was federally legalized, these hotlines have seen substantial year-over-year increases in calls. Here, the obvious implication is that more and more people are becoming gambling addicts thanks to sports betting. While this issue is bad enough on its own, it only gets worse when you look at the kinds of people getting addicted, and the effects of this addiction. Studies have frequently shown that the people most likely to gamble, and thus have a gambling addiction, are the poorest in society. In other words, the increasing prevalence and pressure to engage in sports betting has further impoverished society, and helped widen the gap between rich and poor. Furthermore, The effects of a gambling addiction are just as, if not worse, than other forms of addiction. Gambling addicts frequently report feelings of depression, despondency, and worthlessness, their lives effectively ruined over a few bad bets. Perhaps worst of all, individuals with gambling addictions are horrifyingly likely to attempt, or succeed, in taking their own lives, all because they got bilked at a casino or because Dak Prescott didn't score a touchdown. For what good this sports betting craze has brought, the overnight riches and fun nights with the boys, so too has it brought loss, addiction, and misery. As it stands, sports betting is now legal, whether we like it or not. It's a system that will undoubtedly continue growing in popularity, but its excesses and negative effects can be reined in. The main issue with sports betting is a matter of regulation, mainly around advertising. For products like alcohol and cigarettes, strict guidelines are in place for their advertisement. This makes sense given that these products often have negative health effects or are addictive, and should thus be advertised in a responsible, limited manner. However, these guidelines have yet to be extended to sports betting. A major reason for this is the recent legalization of the practice, meaning there just hasn't been enough time to set up a robust regulatory landscape. A much more cynical reason is that sports betting has brought many states massive tax revenues, meaning they have little incentive to cull their newest cash cow. In either case, the solution is fairly obvious: just properly regulate the practice. Much of the same rules and regulations on alcohol and tobacco should be applied to sports betting. Specific examples include only advertising to older audiences, or preventing celebrities from endorsing whatever random sportsbook they're paid to shill. Another important regulation has to do with the promotions and offers of these advertisements. You've probably seen sportsbooks offer a risk-free first bet, or a free $100 if you sign up. As tantalizing as these offers may be, the strings attached are seldom discussed. In this case, the FTC requires advertisements to be truthful and not misleading, which is a bar sportsbooks are unwilling to meet on their own. Again, just like with the audiences targeted by these ads, so too must their content be regulated. Finally, outside of the advertisements and apps for sportsbooks, in-person betting needs to be regulated as well. Self-betting kiosks and bookies are now common sights at some of the largest stadiums, and are often pushed front and center at these establishments. Think of it as the in-person equivalent of seeing 85 FanDuel ads back-to-back. It's just another method of preying on the impulsive. To that end, these on-site gambling services should be trimmed down and put to the side, rather than being in your face. In addition, investing in services to help gambling addicts at these stadiums will go a long way in curtailing the broader issue of addiction. In any event, hopefully in time we can address the issues surrounding sports betting, and hopefully the deluge of annoying ads and promotions can be quelled somewhat. Thanks for reaching the end. While sports betting is undeniably an issue in America, another problematic form of gambling in this country is the lottery. If you want to learn more about another massive gambling industry, check out this vid where I go further in depth. With that out of the way, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Thank you all once again for 1,000 subs, and until next time, take care.